Okay, we are live. Assuming I'm doing this correctly, welcome in everyone to a new stream. I'm going to do something that I have never done on this channel before that is not gaming related at all. And the title, and as you can see on your screen, is probably a dead giveaway, but I am going to be doing my first ever mock draft on this channel. This is the first time, again, I've done something on my channel that's not related to gaming. Um, Just give me another 15 to 20 seconds here to finish setting up my stream. Okay, and I think we are good to go. All right, so I should preface by saying that I'm not a huge college football fan, but I do partake in some college football throughout the year, and after the Super Bowl ends, I usually look at roughly 50 prospects, try to grind some tape, get the common consensus from other scouts and other experts, the Daniel Jeremiahs of the world and whatnot. And I try to match that with, you know, what I think every team needs in the first round of the draft. So we're going to be selecting all 32 teams in the first round. And without further ado, let's go ahead and begin. So we are starting off with the Tennessee Titans, who own the #1 overall pick. Now, throughout the course of this mock draft, there will be some times where you can probably talk me out of a pick where I might pick one player, but you could definitely make an argument for another player or an argument for trading down, for example. But with that said, there's also some picks in this draft where I will die on the hill on. What I mean by that is I know the Titans have put out some smoke, but there's no way they're not going Cam Ward #1 overall, at least in my mind. Um, you know, the Titans currently have Will Levis listed as their starting quarterback. And listen, he got benched last year for Mason Rudolph. Clearly, neither him or Mason Rudolph are the answer at QB. As far as, the rest of the team goes, this team's not in a position to go and hand a 1 year contract out to 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers or 37-year-old Russell Wilson. I don't think they're in the best position to go and get Sam Darnold either. The Titans are picking #1 overall for a reason. And Sam Darnold, of course, was in an offense with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, and Kevin O'Connell has proven to be a pretty damn good offensive mind as well. So, in my eyes, there's not really another option for the Titans other than to go QB with Cam Ward and try to build around him. As far as Cam Ward goes, I mean, what I like to do, at least with quarterbacks, is kind of compare them to how they would have gone or how high they would have gone in, previous drafts. Now, obviously last year there were 6 QBs taken in the top 12 picks. And I would probably rank Cam Ward somewhere between Michael Penix, who was the 4th QB taken off the board, and Bo Nix as prospects, anyways. And look, Penix showed some flashes, albeit in a small sample size with the Falcons last year, and Bo Nix ended up leading the Broncos to the playoffs. So I think Cam Ward is a potential franchise quarterback. He has as good of a shot as any QB in this class, which obviously this QB class isn't all that strong. I do think there's really going to only be 2 QBs taken in the first round, and I have them going in the top 2. And I'm having the Cleveland Browns take Shedeur Sanders. Now, unlike with the Miami pick, where I would die on the hill of Cam Ward going to Miami, you can talk me out of Shedeur Sanders going to Cleveland. Um, on one hand, Cleveland, they're in such a bad position. Myles Garrett is all but gone. They could very well draft someone like an Abdul Carter or maybe Travis Hunter. And you do have Deshaun Watson, which Deshaun Watson sucks, but the NFL isn't as black and white when it comes to a sunk cost fallacy. Like, on one hand, you shouldn't double down on a bad move, right? But Deshaun Watson, here are Deshaun Watson's cap hits for the next few seasons. So for 2025 and 2026, Deshaun Watson's cap hit is nearly $73 million. And in 2027, it's about $18 million. But the dead money, which for those of you guys who don't know, dead money is basically just remaining guarantees on a contract. The dead money that the Browns would eat if they cut Deshaun Watson in 2025 would be $172 million. In 2026, it would be about $100 million, and in 2027, it falls to a more modest $27 million. But with that said, we've all seen Deshaun Watson on the football field. He has been terrible. He's a backup level quarterback with all that baggage, and he retore his Achilles and will reportedly miss the 2025 season. And look, if you're the Browns, you don't know when you're going to pick number 2 overall again. There are a lot of bad teams down here that are picking, 8, 9, 10 overall. I believe, what was it? I believe it was 10 teams who finished with 5 wins or less. So, you're talking about one play potentially in a game that makes you fall from pick 3 to pick 8 or something like that. So you don't know when you're going to draft this high again. I do like Shedeur Sanders as a prospect. I was just talking about Cam Ward in last year's class. I think Shedeur Sanders, I like him better than J.J. McCarthy as a prospect. He's probably between Bo Nix and J.J. McCarthy, and I wasn't super high on J.J. McCarthy last year. Hopefully he proves me wrong. And again, I'm far from a draft expert. I'm kind of just spitballing at this point based off some film I've seen and based off what other experts are saying. But moving on to number 3 overall, the Giants need a quarterback as well, but there's really no quarterback worth taking at this point. Jackson Dart seems to be the consensus. I mean, he's ranked 127 on PFF's board, but I think the general consensus is Jackson Dart's the 3rd best quarterback in this class, but with that said, he is not going in the first round. The Giants, they could potentially go out and get Sam Darnold. I think they have a marginally better situation than the Titans do. Malik Nabers is a superstar. Tyrone Tracy looked pretty good last year. And, they have like Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton. They looked okay last year, but I think you go Travis Hunter here. Best player in the draft. You could say Abdul Carter is the best player in the draft, and you won't get that strong of an argument from me, but Travis Hunter, the fact that he can play 2 positions, I think the range of outcomes, best case scenario, Travis Hunter is an all-pro caliber corner as a rookie, and he's good enough to be a number 2 wide receiver on the Giants. I don't think he's going to be better than Malik Nabers, but if you get a number 2 receiver and an all-pro caliber corner at number 3, that is a tremendous value pick. Now, more realistically, the common consensus, which I happen to agree with, is Travis Hunter does have the ability to be an all-pro caliber corner as a rookie, but he's probably more of a gadget player on offense where he'll play 15 to 20 snaps a game in certain packages, probably red zone packages. But even then, terrific pick at number 3 overall. Number 4 overall, the New England Patriots. My favorite team. Now, listen, Patriots fans can't agree on anything. I mean, there was the whole, was it Brady or Belichick? And then after Brady ended up leaving, it was, Cam Newton or Mac Jones. And even last year, half of the Patriots fans wanted to take Marvin Harrison Jr., number 3 overall, instead of Drake May. And the half of the people that wanted to take Marvin Harrison were wrong, by the way. That's nothing against Marvin Harrison, but I think every Patriots fan is glad that they have Drake May. And with that said, the Patriots on paper may very well have the worst roster in football, despite owning the number 4 overall pick. There are certain positions on the Patriots, like you'll see, according to PFF, running back is a need, as well as guard. Tackle's certainly a need. I think at guard, generally you don't pick guards this high, although if there was a highly talented prospect that could go this high, you would probably consider it. But I think guard, they can live with Cole Strange and Mike Onwenu starting for next year. Cole Strange, of course, has kind of been a draft bust. Mike Onwenu's actually been pretty good, although he had a down season last year, as did Ramondre Stevenson, Ramondre Stevenson's kind of an enigma. He's an explosive runner. He's dynamic, great at getting yards after contact, but he had 7 fumbles last year. Now, if the Patriots were the perennial team with Tom Brady that they used to be, where they were consistently in the AFC Championship game every year, then yeah, you probably look to upgrade these positions. But they are in such a bad position that they need to go out and get a dog. And This is going to probably piss off some people. Abdul Carter's the best player left on the board, so I'm going to select Teteroa McMillan, wide receiver out of Arizona, and here's why. To me, the Patriots have been kicking the can down the road on receiver every year ever since they took N'Keal Harry in the first round in 2019. He, of course, was a colossal bust, and then guys like A.J. Brown, Deebo Samuel, DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin were taken later in that draft. But look, Drake May cannot go into his second season with his top receiver being either Kayshon Boutte or Demario Douglas. It just can't happen. And if you look at the free agent receivers, T. Higgins was the golden prize, right? But he just got franchise tagged by the Bengals. Now, there's a chance he doesn't end up with the Bengals, but now he's not on the open market. Of course, the Patriots have the most cap space in the NFL right now, so they could have maybe thrown a bag at him that no other team could. And then, you have guys like Chris Godwin's a free agent, but reports suggest that he's going to end up back in Tampa. Stefon Diggs is a free agent, but he's on the wrong side of 30 coming off of an ACL tear. And I don't see him ever playing for New England ever, anyways. But in my eyes, for as great as Abdul Carter is, and he's the second best player in the draft, in my opinion, marginally behind Travis Hunter. And again, you can put him number one overall, and you won't get that strong of an argument from me. Teteroa McMillan, in my eyes, moves the needle a little more than Abdul Carter does as far as the Patriots' future goes. And look, the Patriots could certainly use another pass rusher, but they also desperately need a receiver. McMillan, 6'5", very reminiscent of Drake London. Some people have tried using that as a knock against McMillan, that he's just a marginally slower Drake London. But Drake London had 100 catches for over 1,200 yards last year with washed Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix throwing to him for like 3 games. So if McMillan can be 90% of that, I'm satisfied if I'm the Patriots. So now, to wrap up the top 5, we got the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, Abdul Carter is the best player left on the board, like I just mentioned, but the Jaguars, they already have 2 above-average pass rushers in Josh Hines-Allen and Travon Walker. Hines-Allen, I believe, last offseason signed a pretty hefty extension, so he's not going anywhere anytime soon. Travon Walker, I believe this is his 4th year in the league coming up. He just completed his 3rd. I imagine the Jags will probably pick up his 5th-year option, so he'll be around for a couple more years. Travon Walker, very underrated, by the way. He gets overshadowed because Aiden Hutchinson, of course, was taken number 2 overall by the Lions. Hutchinson's all-world. He's a superstar. But Travon Walker's still very good. So, there's a scenario where if they were to take Abdul Carter might be the 3rd best pass rusher on that Jaguars team. And that's nothing against Abdul Carter. I think he's a great prospect, but they don't really need him, and I think teams are going to be clamoring to trade up to get him. And look, PFF changes up whoever is going to accept the trade. I did a mock before this, and I'm kind of just spitballing that. But I think the Carolina Panthers are going to move up to try and get him. They're going to swap picks 8 and 5, and I don't know. They'll get pick 110. The package isn't exactly important, but I do think there's a possibility that the Carolina Panthers end up trading up to select Abdul Carter. Ideally, the Panthers, they kind of need receiver help for Bryce Young, who kind of had a resurgence last year after getting benched. But their defense is also awful. They ended up trading away Brian Burns to the Giants last offseason, so this is kind of the Brian Burns replacement. So earlier, I talked about how, with the Browns taking Shedeur Sanders, you could probably talk me out of that pick. You could maybe talk me out of the Giants and the Patriots not taking Travis Hunter and Teteroa McMillan respectively, and potentially going Abdul Carter. But with Cam Ward going to the Titans, I was very passionate about that pick, and that's not something you can talk me out of. And you want to know what's something else you can't talk me out of? The Raiders taking Ashton Jeanty, the running back out of Boise State. Listen, I don't care about my value or how this is a deep running back class or how running backs are a dime a dozen. You shouldn't take running backs this high. Don't care. He's the 3rd best player in this draft. I think objectively, the top 3 players in any given order should be Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, and Ashton Jeanty in this draft. Now, the Raiders had an awful running back room and quarterback room last year. Now, there's, again, no quarterback worth taking this high. But if you take Ashton Jeanty, look, I think the Raiders, with their offensive situation, with Brock Bowers, who's already an elite tight end, Jacoby Myers, very good receiver, and I think there's a good possibility that Ashton Jeanty is an elite running back as a rookie. If you want to go out and try to run the table with an older Aaron Rodgers or reunite Russell Wilson with Pete Carroll, I think that makes the Raiders an intriguing team at the very least. But if you decide not to do that, guess what? Your quarterback of the future is going to be walking into a very good situation. So now we are at number 7 overall. Of course, the Jets are moving on from Aaron Rodgers, but again, there's no one really worth taking here as far as quarterbacks go. But I am going to have the Jets. You could go in a couple different directions here. You could certainly, make an argument for someone like a Mason Graham. I'm gonna go Will Johnson here, the corner out of Michigan. DJ Reed is a free agent for the Jets, and you get another corner opposite Sauce Gardner. Will Johnson, he's 6'2", 202. Now, he does have some injury concerns. He got injured last year and missed some time, and he was supposed to participate in the draft combine, or in the combine, and he ultimately ended up backing out last minute. So, but I do think he's a very good corner, physical corner, very toolsy, and, best case scenario, the Jets have 2 lockdown corners for the near future in Sauce Gardner and Will Johnson. So now we got the Jacksonville Jaguars trading down from pick 5 to pick 8, and the Jaguars are going to fare very well with this trade. They get some more draft capital from the Panthers, and they are going to select Mason Graham, D tackle out of Michigan. Now, for the Jaguars, I think Mason Graham's probably the best player available at this point, and he forms a pass rush with Josh Hines Allen and Trayvon Walker, like I said earlier. And look, the NFL's a copycat league, right? We just saw the Eagles win the Super Bowl, in large part thanks to their trenches, especially their defensive line. They didn't blitz a single time against the Chiefs, and they made Patrick Mahomes very uncomfortable. I think teams are going to start trying to copycat that formula. Now, this isn't to say that the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to go from holding the number 5 overall pick to being a Super Bowl contender, but a defensive line featuring Josh Hines Allen, Trayvon Walker, and Mason Graham is certainly a good start. So now we're at number 9 overall. The New Orleans Saints, they could go a number of different directions as well, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Tyler Warren, the tight end out of Penn State. For me, it's about the range of outcomes here. So think about the worst range of outcomes when it comes to the Saints' skill positions, right? Alvin Kamara is on the wrong side of 30. The offense has largely ran through him the last couple of years. He might fall off a cliff. Chris Olave, unfortunately, suffered a ton of concussions last year. So there's a chance that, his football future may be in jeopardy. Rashid Shaheed had a major injury last year. I think he tore his labrum and missed most of the year. So there's a possibility that, hey, maybe all 3 of those guys or some combination of the 3 of those guys aren't the same. So at least Tyler Warren offers kind of an insurance policy, if you will, to kind of make the skill position group look a little better. And look, the Saints are a team that might look for quarterback potentially even this year. There have been some rumors floated around that they might move on from Derek Carr, but I think at this point it's all smoke and no fire. But on the other side, again, talking about the range of outcomes, maybe Alvin Kamara still looks great on the other side of 30, and the offense can still somewhat run through him. And maybe you can take some of that leverage or some of that pressure off of Kamara with another pass catcher like Tyler Warren. And then, maybe Chris Olave hopefully comes back to being the receiver he once was, and Rashid Shaheed's still that deep threat that can take the top off of a defense. Again, for the Saints, you can probably talk me into a number of things, but I think given the range of outcomes, Tyler Warren is a safe and secure pick. So now we're at number 10 overall. The Chicago Bears, I'm going to have them take the best player available at a position of need too, Will Campbell, the tackle out of LSU. Now, he may very well profile as a guard due to his arm length, But both the Bears starting guards, Tevin Jenkins and Matt Pryor, are free agents, and you got to protect Caleb Williams. Now, I talked about the Patriots getting a receiver for Drake May and how that moved the needle more than taking someone like an Abdul Carter. Now, I think if you're the Bears, you don't really need receiver help. I mean, Caleb Williams is throwing to DJ Moore, Rome Odunze. Keenan Allen's a free agent this year, but Cole Kmet. He's got some pass catchers. And the Bears' offensive line wasn't good last year, but I will say, I believe Caleb Williams had the highest pressure to sack percentage or highest pressure to sack ratio last year. He did have a tendency to hold on to the ball for too long. But with that said, Bears' offensive line still wasn't good. Will Campbell, you can probably plug him in at either guard position, or you can kick him out to tackle, kick one of your tackles inside. But this is good protection for Caleb Williams. So we're done with our top 10, and we're moving on to pick number 11. I'm going to go with a little bit of a controversial pick here. Maybe not controversial, but I've seen Josh Simmons fall to usually the 20s in the draft, but I think this makes sense for the 49ers. We're going to go ahead and take him. Now, Josh Simmons, if we take a look at his snaps, so he's been a left tackle the past couple of years, and I think he dealt with an injury in 2024. But as you can see, in 2022, he did play exclusively right tackle. So ultimately, what I think would happen in this scenario is Josh Simmons gets kicked out to right tackle. And, they have Trent Williams at left tackle. But Trent Williams is getting up there in age. He's dealt with some injuries, too. So you could potentially here, I think it's very likely that Josh Simmons is going to be, a building block for this 49ers offensive line, whether it's at right tackle or left tackle. But again, this is one of those picks I'm not super passionate about. You could definitely talk me out of it and go a number of different directions. One pick that I am kind of passionate about when it comes to them boys, Dallas Cowboys. Luther Burden III, wide receiver out of Missouri. This is another target for Dak, and it helps out CeeDee Lamb as well. He will likely be a slot receiver and played mostly the slot at Missouri, but Luther Burden, he is tremendous after the catch. I mean, and if you look at his missed tackles forced, he had 30 missed tackles first, which is tied for first among wide receivers. So I think this is a kind of a no-brainer pick for the Cowboys. Now, the Miami Dolphins at number 13 overall. I'm going to have them go with Malachi Starks, safety out of Georgia. I think he's easily the best safety in the class. It's a position of need, with Javon Holland being a free agent. And Malachi Starks is also a pretty versatile safety. So he's a safety by position, but if you take a look at his 2024 snaps by alignment, he played deep safety for most of his snaps, but he also played in the box, played a little bit of outside corner and on the D-line, but he also played a significant amount of snaps in the slot. So he's very versatile, a good chip for the Dolphins to use on their defense. And now we are at number 14 overall. And I'm going to go with Mike Green here, the edge out of Marshall. I just think he's an athletic freak. I mean, you take a look at his pass rush grades, his run defense grades. He's 6'4", 248. Primarily plays outside of tackle. But yeah, he's a great pass rusher. He's also great against the run. He does have a wrestling background, which helps with his leverage and slipping out of blocks. And again, he's a freak athlete. So I have him going at 14 overall. Now at number 15, I am going to have the Atlanta Falcons take James Pierce Jr., the edge out of Tennessee. Now, I saw a stat that it was something like over a period of time, the Falcons either ranked 31st or 32nd every year in pressures. The Falcons have notoriously not had a good pass rush and haven't done anything really to address it in a long time. They do have, building blocks on that offense. Certainly they have Michael Penix. He's hopefully the QB of the future. They got Bijan Robinson. They have Drake London. I believe Darnell Mooney is coming back. And, Kyle Pitts is still there, although he's kind of been a little bit of a disappointment. But James Pierce, he's also good against the run. Take a look at, his PFF grades are pretty high. 6'5", 243. I think that's a good pick there for the Falcons. Now, to round out the first half of this draft, we got the Arizona Cardinals. I'm going to have them take Kelvin Banks Jr. here, tackle out of Texas. So, you could kick either Kelvin Banks Jr. or Paris Johnson out to right tackle, as Kelvin Beachum is a free agent. And, the Cardinals need some O-line help. James Conner was fighting for every yard that he got last year. Kyler Murray's kind of running for his life a little bit. The Cardinals are they're kind of a bled team. They do have some, talent on the team, but they are kind of a gigantic pile of bled, and their offensive line has consistently been a problem for them. So now at number 17 overall, we're going to be in a trade situation here. We have our second trade of the draft, and I'm going to trade this pick to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And again, what the Buccaneers give up isn't really all that important, but I do think they're going to. I do think this is at least a 1% possibility, if that it'll happen. Oops, I did not want to trade again. So the Bucs move up to 17, and they move up to 17 because I believe they are going to select Jalen Walker, linebacker out of Georgia. Jalen Walker, super versatile. He can play off the ball linebacker or the edge as you take a look at his snaps by alignment. Played in the box for most of his snaps, but also played on the D-line, played a little bit of the slot. And look, he's a pretty good athlete. The only bad thing about him is he doesn't have a ton of experience when it comes to, rushing the passer. But I do think Jalen Walker is ultimately going to go high in the first round. Now we move to number 18, the Seattle Seahawks, and I'm going to have them taking an edge here. Now, the Seahawks really could use some interior offensive line help, but I don't think there's really anyone worth taking here. But I think I'm going to have them take Mykel Williams, the edge out of Georgia, 6'5", 265, not even 21 years old yet. And as you can see, he's kind of lined up everywhere. So he's a versatile pass rusher. We'll go ahead and draft him. So he can profile as a D-end in a 4-3 look or a 3-4. Great at bull rushing and collapsing the pocket. He's also a good defender against the run. So now we got the Cincinnati Bengals trading back from 17 to 19, and I am going to have them take Walter Nolan, D-tackle out of Mississippi. So the Bengals are going to fare pretty well here by trading back, getting some extra picks, and still getting a very good player in Walter Nolan. The Bengals' defense last year was pretty much Trey Hendrickson and 10 average Joes. Now, ultimately, I think this will help out the Bengals' pass rush. It'll help out their defense against the run, too, as you take a look at his run defense grade at 91.6. And, he lined up a little bit of everywhere, primarily lined up in the B gap, but also lined up over tackle, some snaps outside the tackle, and in the A gap. But Walter Nolan, I think, will be a excellent pick for the Bengals. The versatility, he can play anywhere from a 0 tech to a 5 tech. He has several above average pass rush moves, whether it's a swim or a bull rush. And he's also pretty good against the run. So now that brings us to number 20. And I am going to have the Denver Broncos take Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver, out of The Ohio State University. Now, Egbuka played primarily in the slot, but should do well on the outside. He is 6'1". As you take a look here, he did play primarily in the slot in 2024 and throughout his career at Ohio State. But he is 6 foot. He is 6'1". Broncos need some more help outside of Cortland Sutton. Give Bo Nix another target to throw to. He's a good route runner, good hands, all that fun stuff that you look for in a receiver. So now, 21 overall, Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm going to have them take Jedi Barron, corner out of Texas. He's a toolsy DB, great IQ. The Steelers need secondary help playing against Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow twice a year. And Jedi Barron may very well profile as a slot corner. He didn't play, he played mostly on the outside, at least in 2024. But in 2022 and 2023, he actually played more in the slot than anything. But given his size, he's only 5'11", so he may very well profile better as a slot corner. But slot corner is becoming a more and more important position in the NFL. We saw Cooper DeJean, how big of an impact he had on the Eagles last year, primarily playing slot corner. And no, I know he's Caucasian, but he was never a safety. He was always a corner. But anyways, number 22 overall, we have the Los Angeles Chargers of San Diego. And look, we know how much John Harbaugh loves his tight ends. I'm going to have them take Colston Loveland, tight end out of Michigan. Herbert needs more weapons outside of Ladd McConkey. And again, Harbaugh loves his tight ends. He plays as more of a big receiver, I think, kind of like a Travis Kelce. That's not to say that he is going to be Travis Kelce, but Colston Loveland, good hands, good route running. He does struggle as a run blocker, though, so that could be a little bit of a cause for concern, but I don't think it's enough of a cause for concern where he's going to fall out of the first round. All right, 23 overall. I'm going to do something. I'm going to do what some people may call a reach. But I'm going to have the Packers take Jack Sawyer, the edge, out of Ohio State. This helps out Green Bay's pass rush, obviously. He's a high IQ player, has a high motor, made plenty of cleanup sacks, if you will, throughout his time, especially last year at Ohio State. But listen, cleanup sacks are largely because the defense is covering on the back end, right? But you also need to have a pass rusher continue to fight and continue to be resilient to make those plays. He's super powerful, great bull rush, but he does kind of lack a secondary pass rush move if you're going to hold something against him. So that is something you need to work on, but still a pretty high floor player in my eyes. So now at 24 overall, the Minnesota Vikings. I'm going to have them take Omarion Hampton, running back out of North Carolina. Get J.J. McCarthy some more help, assuming they move on from Sam Darnold, which I believe they will. Now, look, Omarion Hampton consistently gets yards after contact, and per PFF, if you take a look at his total yards, he ran for 1,660 yards in 2024. 1,222 of those were after contact. So about 75% of his yards came after contact. That is just insane. He has elite burst if you watch him on tape. He goes from 0 to 60 real quick. If you're going to hold something against him, he's not the best pass catcher, as you can take a look at his reception numbers by year. 529, only got up to 38, but still, I think Omarion Hampton also has the ability to be a superstar running back. Now at 25 overall, we got the Houston Texans here. And I'm going to have them take Tyler Booker, the guard out of Alabama. Now, the Texans' interior O-line was awful last year. Kenyon Green, former first round pick, has kind of turned out to be a bust. Shaq Mason's getting up there in age as well. And I think the interior pressure is largely why we saw a regression from CJ Stroud. But Booker profiles as potentially an elite pass protector, which should help out Stroud quite a bit. Now, the one gripe about him is Tyler Booker's not the best run blocker, but that's certainly something that he can improve on. So, moving on to number 26 overall, we got the Los Angeles Rams. I'm going to have him take Jihad Campbell here. He just had a very good combine, by the way, which I don't put a lot of weight on the combine, because the combine is kind of just like the underwear Olympics. Now, sure, if you have a really good combine, that can kind of skyrocket your draft stock, right? Just like how if you have a terrible combine, that can kind of tank your stock. But everything in between, which is where most people fall, I don't really think it moves the needle all that much. But both Christian Rozeboom and Troy Reeder are free agents for the Rams. He's a versatile defender. He played 20-plus snaps at either Mike, weak side linebacker, or the edge against Tennessee and Missouri. Now, he can be a little over-aggressive against QB scrambles and misdirection plays, so that can be a little problematic, especially with if he goes to the Rams, he'll be playing a guy like Kyler Murray twice a year. I mean, Brock Purdy isn't exactly a dual threat QB, but he can move around a little bit, as can Geno Smith. And, of course, those are only 6 out of the 17 games he played all year. But Jahad Campbell, definitely think he'll be going in the first round. He may very well go before pick 26. Pick 27, the Baltimore Ravens. I am going to have them take Josh Conerly Jr., tackle out of Oregon. I think this is ultimately going to be the Ronnie Stanley replacement, as he is a free agent, and I believe he's going elsewhere. Conerly has more experience at left tackle than others on the board. He's a great pass protector, but much like Tyler Booker, kind of inconsistent as a run blocker. Now, at number 28 overall, the Detroit Lions. We're going to have them get a new edge opposite Aiden Hutchinson, and it's going to be Nick Scorton, one of the edges out of Texas A&M. Great athleticism, especially for his size at approximately 285 pounds. Now, he has a multitude of pass rush moves, a high motor, and doesn't give up on plays. At number 29 overall, we're going to do something else crazy here. So, that Myles Garrett guy, right? He wants out of Cleveland. And I think the Commanders are a perfect spot for him. The Commanders, of course, made it to the NFC Championship game last year. But their defense was terrible. They ended up allowing 50-plus points to the Eagles. And I know the Eagles are terrific, but that Commanders defense was terrible. You need to improve that defense. So we are going to force this trade. Myles Garrett is going to the Commanders. And again, the package isn't necessarily important. I do think it's going to include a first-round pick, and that's what's important. I'm sure there will be more details in that trade if it does happen, but the Cleveland Browns now own pick number 29, and I believe they are going to take Gray Zabel, tackle out of North Dakota State. Jedrick Wills is a free agent, didn't really pan out as a first-round pick. Now, Zabel did play exclusively left tackle in 2024, but also has collegiate experience at left guard and at right tackle, as we take a look at his snaps by alignment. Exclusively a left tackle in 2024, some snaps at left guard in 2023, although they were primarily at right tackle, and same thing can be said about 2022. And he's a monster. He's 6'6". He does have below average arm length, so you could very well see him slide inside. And there's also some concern that he might struggle against speed rushers. So at number 30 overall, the Buffalo Bills. I am going to have them take Matthew Golden, wide receiver out of Texas. Give Josh Allen another target. Josh Allen pretty much won MVP last year because he didn't have any elite pass catchers, and because I think there was some voter fatigue with Lamar Jackson. But look, Josh Allen still had a great year, and for as great as Khalil Shakir can be, the tight ends aren't really all that great. Dalton Kincaid looked great as a rookie, but he really looked like he slowed down in his sophomore year. Matthew Golden, he's an absolute burner. He ran a sub 4.3 40 at the combine. He can play in the slot and he can play out wide. Now, he is undersized. I believe he's only 5'11". Well, this says he's 6 foot. 195 pounds. Still not a particularly big dude, but he is an absolute burner. I think he can stretch the field, and with Josh Allen's bazooka of an arm, that can be huge for the Buffalo Bills. Now, at 31 overall, the Kansas City Chiefs, you would kind of love to take a tackle here, but a lot of the tackles kind of just went off the board. So I think the Chiefs are going to end up taking Shamar Stewart, the other edge out of Texas A&M. He's an absolute freak of nature at 6'5" and approximately 270 pounds. Can't remember what he weighed in on at the combine. I think it was somewhere around 270. PFF has him listed at 6'6", 290, but I think he is a little smaller than that. But he's a big dude, and he ran a sub 4.6 40. He's versatile. He played a significant number of snaps, both over tackle and outside of tackle. Now, there are questions about his ability to finish, as he only had 4.5 career sacks, although I believe PFF, I mean, they have him at 2 sacks a year. PFF does track sacks a little different than, the college football officially does. But still, Shamar Stewart certainly has a high ceiling, probably a lower floor, but at 31 overall and in a weaker draft class, I think you're okay with that. Um, Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, where does this team even really need to improve? They don't need to, which is why they're going to trade their pick to my New England Patriots. 38, 32. Sure, take pick 222. We're forcing this trade. I would love for the Patriots to trade up. Whoops. I'd love for the Patriots to trade up. And look, when I said that there were no tackles available earlier, I kind of meant left tackles because, the Chiefs next year, they're going to have Joe Thuney, I imagine, back at left guard, hopefully. They'll have Creed Humphrey at center. They'll have Trey Smith at right guard. And then I think they're going to have to live with Jawan Taylor at right tackle. However, Armand Membu, I mean, he was exclusively a right tackle. I mean, the Chiefs could theoretically take him and kick him out to left tackle, or you could try Jawan Taylor at left tackle, but I don't see that happening. But the Patriots' offensive line is garbage. But, if the Patriots can land a left tackle, whether it's Ronnie Stanley or Cam Robinson, those are kind of the two big free agent names. And if they can trade up to the back half of the end of the first round, and look, I had them take Tet McMillan. That'll be controversial to some people, but if they can trade in the back half and take Armand Membu to secure their right tackle spot, kick Mike Onwenu back into right guard. And again, their offensive line, if the Patriots improve their roster according to this mock draft and they have Tet McMillan and then, Hunter Henry, Demario Davis, Demario Douglas, not Demario Davis. I mentioned Kayshon Boutte, Demario Douglas, Tet McMillan, Hunter Henry. And then, you have an offensive line if you're able to go out and land Ronnie Stanley or even a Cam Robinson. And then you have Cole Strange, David Andrews, Mike Onwenu, and Armand Membu. That's not a bad team. I mean, do I think the Patriots are a playoff team with that roster on offense? Probably not. But they go from being arguably the worst team on paper to probably middle of the pack. And that is how we are going to end the first ever mock draft on this channel. I won't lie to you guys, I was a little nervous doing this just because, again, I'm not the biggest college football fan in the world, but I did try to grind some tape, grind together as much information as I could about all these prospects, as well as some that I did not end up taking in this first round. I'm sure anyone that sees this will have their opinions and think I'm an idiot for saying ABC all the way to Z, but yeah, this is my first ever mock draft, and hey, if you guys like this enough and show this stream a little more support, I might make this a regular thing, at least until the draft comes in late April. But for now, that is all I got. Thank you guys for watching, and